of my A-26B time-lapse. I'm filming this just literally seconds after I finished off part one. But yeah, for those of you who haven't seen part one, up above, I'll put a link to it. You can hop over there and take a look at how I got to this part of the building process. In this video, in this half of the time-lapse, you're gonna see the final paint, and then the decals, the weathering, and then all the fiddly bits. So the plan for this going forward, if you haven't seen part one and you're just jumping into part two, is paint. I still have to do the research on the control surfaces, the ailerons and elevators and rudder. I got to double check if they were aluminum, basically if they were made out of sheet metal or if they're made out of fabric, because the painting will be different. Once I get that sorted out, then it's gloss black, then it's alclad, and then I'll be picking out some random panels, and then it's sealant, and then everything else. So it's going to have a bit of work still to go, but we are getting there. So without any further ado, let's get right into this episode of part two of my time lapse, and enjoy. So right off the bat with this one, we start working on the engines. I do need to get all of the engines completed before I can start painting, as the cowl flaps need to be painted. So I get the engines all finalized, weathered, all that kind of stuff, and then I mask them off and paint the cowl flaps. You'll also see I paint the control surfaces with just standard Vallejo aluminum, as the aircraft will be painted in alclad. The control surfaces being fabric would have been painted aluminum, and you want to get that contrast done early. It's easier to mask over the Vallejo paint than it is to mask over the alclad. So I paint all that first, mask it off, and then wrap it up with the alclad. So I know it's pretty quick into this video, but it's probably time to do a quick update before I move on to the next step. So this has, oh, I missed a little bit back there. Yeah, well, this has been, it's got the black base on it. It is ready to go with, oh, this turd sticks. It is ready to go for Alclad. So this is the Alclad brand gloss black base. So you do the entire thing up in that base color, and then you go ahead and paint the Alclad over top of it. I've also gone ahead and got all these little bits done. The engines, which will fit on like that, and then the cowlings, which will fit on like that. So they have already been black based as well. So when I go ahead and paint the airframe, I can paint those at the same time. And then the cockpit, the section that's going to be open, has also been done. That's basically everything that needs to be Alclad has been black based, and I'm going to go ahead pretty soon actually and get the Alclad done. And then we'll come back, we'll talk about the Alclad when it's finished. It's going to take a bit for the Alclad to flash. This has been sitting for about 24 hours to ensure that it is dry as good as it can. I don't like handling these for very long, for a while after you do it. You want to make sure that all of this has flashed off, hardened, cured, everything before you start touching it. It's very easy to start leaving fingerprint marks in it, and then that'll show through into the final product, and it takes a lot of effort to get it cleaned up. So always make sure you let these things dry really well before you move on to the next step, or touch it with your bare hands. I use a glove while I paint. But anyways, we're moving on to the next step. I do have a quick kind of tips and tricks video available. Actually, I'm going to take these off because I have to get ready for the Spitfire. I do have a tips and tricks video on Alclad. It is dated and it's not the best. I do plan to eventually do another one and go over some actual painting technique versus just talking, but that's for a future video. Anyways, for now, we'll move on, and the next time you see that, it should be completely Alcladded. Okay, quick update on the A-26, and it is painted. It has been painted Alclad aluminum. It has been gloss coated. Very happy with everything, considering it is an older monogram kit, and some of these seams were really bad. Overall, the seams have turned out quite nice. There are a little bit of issues with the plastic and some artifacts, and for some reason when I was spraying the clear coat, it kind of speckled. It's like the clear coat ate through the aluminum paint in some places, and I'm not entirely sure why. But you know what? It does give it a little bit of a dirty look, especially considering this is going to be sort of an unwashed combat airframe. It gives it a little bit of a variation. Cowlings have been painted. I guess I can actually pull the masking off of these now while I'm here. So the cowlings are all, again, painted, clear coated, ready to go. Canopy as well. I'm not going to pull the masking on that yet. Well, actually, I guess I can. I don't have anything else to paint on that. So that's ready to go. That's going to be sitting, you know, open like that, so you can see inside the cockpit, which is going to be a nice touch. So it's done. Where's my little, there. And the engines are, well, the cowl flaps have been painted as well. I did the cowl flaps the same color, the airframe aluminum, that I did the Spitfire in, and it just gives it a slightly different tone than the actual aluminum cowling. So when you put it all together and you get it all assembled, it will look these are really hard to line up properly. There. But yeah, so you just a slightly different tone to those cowl flaps, and I think it gives it a very. Did I break that pin off? Well, I guess not. Anyways, it just gives it a different look, you know, a little bit more. Just a slightly different tone to those, breaks up the overall color a little bit once you start adding all the exhaust staining down the cowlings and the dirt from the soot from the guns. You get the nose art and all the markings on it, all the stencils. I believe this actually has I guess it doesn't have a wide set of stencils and the kit. I don't think the aftermarket decals came with any either. Anyways, it's gonna look good. I think it's gonna look really neat sitting there in Alclad. All the dirt, all the staining, everything else. It's gonna look amazing. And it's gonna really complement the Alclad gun nose, the all black bomber version, and then the Vietnam era paint. I think it's gonna look really good. And then I haven't uncovered them yet. I will soon. There's no other painting to this either, similar to the Spitfire. There's no more painting to this other than just weathering. So I can start pulling the masking and stuff like that. I'm not going to uncover the canopies yet because I want to finish all the weathering first. But things like the wheel well masking can come off, the aileron masking can come off, the elevator, all the control surfaces, all of that can be exposed, and then I can start doing some detail, some weathering and stuff like that. Well, decals first, but then weathering. But that's a huge step in the right direction for this kit. So that looks really, really good. So now I'm going to focus on the other two. The C model and the K model with the painting on those two, get them to a point where I can start getting the decals done, get them to the same point as this basically, and then we can move on. And even the raised panel lines don't look horrible at this scale with the Alclad. I was worried how they would turn out, but they don't look horrible, and I think that's going to have a really, really nice shelf presence. So I'm looking forward to getting that done. So anyways, that is that. We will continue along and get the rest of them finished. Okay, so here we are with the A-26B, and we are more or less ready for decals. So aircraft is painted, aircraft is glossed. I have the decals here. Everything ready to go. Oh, you know what? I'm a little tight on this video. There we go. So I'm using Kits World, which will be this sheet for a lot of it. I'm going to do Maggie's drawers, so I'm going to have the DAT decal. Those are the tail numbers, 5C, L, the prop lines, and the national insignia are all coming off of the Kits World sheet. And then off of the kit sheet, I'm going to use the cut here markings, the prop markings, the wing walk markings, and I'm going to use the aircraft designator code. It should be black for what I'm doing, but I'm going to use the kit one just to have the accurate one. And over here, I'm going to use the jack spots for when they do the nose work. It's going to show where to put the jacks on the nose. Now, interestingly, after the fact, I realized this came with instrument panel decals, so I could have put instrument panel decals on this to really make that cockpit pop, considering I'm building it open. Never noticed, so lost opportunity there. But yeah. Curiously, I wonder if it even... Yeah, see, it doesn't even show it in the instructions. It just says instruments are gloss black with white needles and numbers, switches are steel color. It doesn't actually show in the instructions that the instrument panel decals are included. Nowhere in the kit does it tell you that the instrument panel decals are included. Now, unless I actually sat there and looked at the kits and the decals and really made a point of looking, I would have completely missed that. And I did completely miss it, so lesson learned. Anyways, I'm probably going to start with the Kits World decals. No, I take that back. The nose art is going to cover quite a bit of the stencils. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the kit decals. It's also the bigger of the two sheets. I'm going to cut out the vast majority of what I'm going to use, put that on, and the other thing I want to check is, yeah, so it doesn't include the lines on the door, so I'm going to include those as well. I'm going to use the, I like the red color on the kit decals as well. So I'm going to use the, I might even just cut them out now just so I don't lose track of what I'm doing. I'm going to use, I'm going to use those decals, and then I'm going to use those, and those. Yoink. So those, those. Those and that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna use those. I'm gonna start with those kits decals, specifically these nose decals. I'm gonna put these on first. That way when I put the nose art, if the nose art covers them, I'm not going to lose out on the detail that is required. So I'm going to start with that, get that decaled, and then I can seal it, and I can do some of the other painting that needs to be done on that before I do the final weathering. So here we are. We'll move on and get the decals done on this kit.
And then as mentioned here, I'm actually just putting the decals on. All things considered, the Revell kit decals as well as the Kits World decals went down really nice. Both took the decal settling solution solve set really well, and they ended up looking really good. No real issues at all with the decals. once I got the decals done, I gave it one more hit of the Alclad Clear. It did affect the paint a little bit. I think I talk about it a little later. But anyways, the clear coat affected the Alclad and darkened it a little bit. It's not horrible, but it wasn't ideal. Anyways, after that, you'll see I mask off for the olive drab the anti-glare panels on the nose and the engines. And then I also mask off on the tail, the rudder, for a black stripe. So I get all of that painted. And there's no more weathering or flat coat on this. There's just some, I shouldn't say that. There's some minor weathering with the exhaust staining and some gun staining. But other than that, there's no more clear coat or flat coat once that Alclad Clear went on. So I was able to go through and start doing kind of final fitment and everything, and getting it all ready to go to be completed. Here you'll see I got the wheels all painted up, ready to go, and then I start going through with some of the little fiddly bits, the antennas and all that stuff, and start getting all that ready to go and glued on and whatnot. And I got the masking pulled, just really kind of getting close to that final push to finish it off.
So just a quick update here. Looking through the instructions as I'm doing these nose guns. The instructions show the short ones is 201, the middle ones is 202, and the long ones is 203, but they're backwards. The middle ones are actually 203, and the long ones are 202. And the instructions also show the two long ones as different lengths, even though they are actually the same length. So I'm just going to follow the instructions in the sense of the sizes, and I'm going to forget the actual part numbers. So the two short ones are going to go on the pilot side, the two middle ones are going to go down the middle, and the two longer ones are going to go on the outside on the co-pilot side. I'm hoping that's right. The only other option is to put the if I follow the part numbers, that puts the short ones over here and then the long ones in here, and that looks ridiculous. So I'm going to assume it's the mid-sized ones here and then the long ones here, and that looks a little bit more realistic. So that's what I'm going to go with. It is what it is. So just be careful when you're doing that. This is why it's always good to kind of double check everything, follow the part, the instructions, check the part numbers, dry fit everything. If you've seen just now, I was test fitting the guns just to see how they looked, and I wanted to make sure that they looked right, that they didn't look odd if I went with the way. If I just followed the instructions and I didn't actually do that, then the guns would look really weird, and it's a potential mistake that was missed. So just be careful. Also, the fit on these are pretty bad. There's no hole in the same diameter as the barrel. It's just kind of this narrow barrel fitting down this big, deep, wide hole. So just adjust the fit as needed. There's no positive location for the barrel, so you just kind of have to play with it for a little bit, make sure they all line up. Luckily, I'm using this Tamiya thicker glue, and it takes a little bit for it to set. So I have a little bit of time to play with it before it sets completely. So I can get all of these in place just like this, a little bit of glue on the end. I can put it in, get it seated at the bottom where I want it, let that glue start to set, and then I can, come on, there we go. Close that so I don't knock that over and ruin something. And then you can just take a quick look down the front, make sure all the barrels are more or less centered. It's not going to be perfect because they are kind of holding up their own weight, so it's going to take a little bit for them to set up, but you can play with it a little bit. Just going to look straight ahead, make sure all the gun barrels are more or less pointed straight ahead, and then look down from the top and make sure they're all pointed in the same direction and none are all off to one side or anything. Just like this. Yeah, there we go. Those look pretty good. They're all pointed more or less forward. I'm looking straight down from the front. They're all, oh, see, that one's hanging a little low. So is that guy. Like I said, it'd be a lot better if this had like a positive hole inside. I mean, I theoretically, I could have done it. I could have used a pin vise and I could have drilled a hole the size of the barrel and made sure that it had a nice positive location. The problem is then I'm shortening the barrels, and then not going to have the right length. The other option is they could have put like a plug at the end, so the short barrel had a big fat plug that was the same diameter as the hole, so when it slid in, the back side of it has a nice solid fit, and it's just a little gun barrels that stick out the front. But that's also asking for quite a bit of engineering and foresight coming out of a company like Monogram, which, yeah, again, it is what it is. But there we go, gun barrels are in. I'm gonna let those harden up, and I'm gonna come back and paint all of the gun barrels the black that they need to be. So I'm just gonna put that aside and move on to the next step.
And once I got those gun barrels installed, I just went ahead around the aircraft, painted all the gun barrels black, started to install all the little antennas and the fiddly bits and whatnot that needed to be installed, getting the engine cowlings installed, getting the props installed. Yeah, and then I wrapped it all up doing the nav lights. Standard way I do the nav lights, I just paint the lights chrome, and then I use clear red and clear green over top of it, and it ends up looking very realistic in terms of a glass lens without actually having to use clear parts. Yeah, so that was that, and then the model was finished. It went together really well. No real issues at all with the final little bit of this kit. So we'll wrap it up here, taking a look at a couple of pictures I took of the aircraft in the final, or the model, I should say, in the final photo shoot. So thank you everybody for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, by all means, down below in the comment section or over on Facebook, you can message me if you want to keep it private. Whatever you feel, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or concerns that you might have based off this build. And on that note, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.